morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you that have an evening like me over here. Hello, welcome. This is Timon. I'm from Google for Startups. Happy to welcome you and be your MC today on the next Startup School GenAI session. Today, powered by Google Cloud, we're going to build some enterprise chat apps using GenAI. For all of those of you that are visiting us regularly, this is a time that you can take a stretch, take a glass of water, get ready. But for all of those that are here for the first time and want some refresher about our rules, it's just time for you to focus. Startup School Gen AI Week 4, as you know, Tuesdays and Thursdays are for our live sessions. You can watch them on demand just a few minutes after this class ends. We are recommending labs that are available on SkillsBoost platform, and you have access to those for free. We are also recommending notebooks that need your own cloud console using Colab or Workbench to practice. Treat it as a homework. Don't try to set them right now. Don't try to check it right now. Right now is a perfect time to just focus on your instructors and listen to our live session. You can practice afterwards. But all the recommended labs, all the recommended notebooks are available under this link, Google/GenAI-labs. Few of housekeeping rules. As always, we have a fantastic moderators, fantastic Gen AI experts that are there at your disposal, ready to answer all of your questions. So don't be afraid, don't be shy, just ask down below the screen. There is a QA button and you can ask your questions. Please allow a couple of minutes sometimes for the question to show up and for the answer to show up as well. But we have this nice feature that you will be informed by a pop-up that your question has a reply. We're going to have a live Q&A at the end of this session, so upvote questions that are interesting and you think they should be asked to our instructors at the end. I already told that this is available on demand, but the slides are not shared. That's another rule that we have. I think that would be all for the housekeeping. And let's not lose any more time, because today we have a very special session with two instructors. Let me invite to the stage Alessia and Javi, a great specialist that will show you the world of chat apps today with a very real demos, with their very real examples. I'm eager to see them, and I'm gonna take part in it as well. Alessia, Javi, the floor is yours. I will see you both in about an hour. Okay, let's see in about an hour and let's talk. I will represent our fantastic audience and their questions. But until that time, here's your stage. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Timon. Here we are. Okay, well, good morning, good afternoon. Hello to everyone, wherever you are. It's great to be here. My name is Alessia, and I'm a cloud consultant, part of Google Cloud Professional Services, and I'm delighted to be here today to talk about possibly my most favorite interest work-wise, which is conversational AI.
Perfect. This is Xavi. I'm working as a head of infra at VoiceFlow, and I am a Google developer expert in conversational AI. So feel free to follow us on our social media if you wanna see more content like the one that you are seeing right now. And yeah, today, as Timon said, we are gonna be talking about how to build enterprise chat apps using GenAI. So this is today's agenda. We are gonna cover and mention all the, like the layers that are involved when we are building enterprise chat apps, specifically using generative AI. But before explaining like layer by layer, we wanna give you a brief overview of the generative AI. For the folks that just joined the GenAI Startup School, let's introduce briefly what is a large language model. Basically, they are ML models that can recognize, predict, and generate human language. They are trained using tens to hundred and billions of parameters. They are really, 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 really big models, and they are pre-trained on a large corpus of text, followed by fine-tuning on a specific task. We will show you what are the current models available on Vertex AI right now. And yeah, like you can see the words all around: large language models, large models, and basically generative AI. So whenever we are talking about GenAI, it's basically when we are interacting with an LLM. So what are the LLMs that we can usually see on everywhere, and also that are available on Vertex AI? Basically are generative text, where you can like specify a prompt and say that you want something and it will generate a text, for example. There are also generative chats, LLMs that you can use, for instance, like Bard is using under the hood, to like have these multi-turn conversations with maintaining the context of every single session. Text to image, like you are requesting to generate an image, and from directly from text. Then API for text and images. All the LLMs and all the fine-tuned LLMs that are available on Vertex AI are exposed through an API, which is pretty nice, because basically it helps to democratize the ML, so everyone can use it in a really simple way. And yeah, like speech to text and code generation. That is the one that is under that is using our Duet AI, and that is helping us while we are developing. In this case, we are generating code, basically. So with that being explained, what is an LLM and what are like the typical LLMs that we can see out there, and the ones that are available on Vertex AI. Forgot to mention, but like you can go there and check, like the Text Bison, Chat Bison LLM, Gemini, Gemini Pro, Gemini Ultra. All of them are available on Vertex AI. So feel free to go there and test them out. And so yeah, like with that being said, let's talk about the key layers that we're gonna talk today. These three layers are the ones that we're gonna explain in this presentation, and are the ones that are basically related to when we are building an enterprise app, and as I said, using generative AI. So the first layer that we're gonna cover is the one that is right at the bottom, which is the foundation layer, which is the large language model. Then on top of that, we are gonna add a data layer, which are like we're gonna talk about data stores, knowledge bases, and how that fits with the large language models, how can work all together. And then we will talk and we will explain the orchestration layer, which is basically a way of putting all together and create conversations and agents, assistants to help users to perform complex complex actions, basically. So let's talk about the AI foundation layer. When we talk about the AI foundation layer, basically, we are talking about large language models. We are talking about fine-tuning large language models. Of course, an LLM, as I said, it is using a vast amount of data to be trained. So it makes sense to, instead of retrain a huge LLM, just running that fine-tuning. This layer also involves the reinforcement learning from human feedback and the prompt engineering. So basically, as you can see here in this example, is when you're interacting with an LLM, you are gonna create a prompt that is the thing that you will do during the prompt engineering phase where you are gonna think how you are gonna request something to a LLM, and then when you do that request to the LLM, you will have an output. Okay. So we have here a quick demo that we were gonna show you. It is a really simple demo that basically is it is gonna generate product description. So we are gonna just have input. We are just gonna enter, sorry, a product name, and we are gonna have different product descriptions. Okay, so let's go to the demo. This is powered by Vertex AI and the generative AI in Qwiklabs. So basically, whenever we hit this button, clicking on generate, a Google Cloud Run is gonna execute, and it is gonna basically send different prompts to an LLM. And those prompts are going to request different information, for instance, like product descriptions, nutrition facts, ingredients, or even a poem about a product, which is funny. So when we click on generating, we will see that, like how the Google Cloud Run is calling the LLM and requesting different prompts. So as you can see here, like the product description, nutrition facts, the same thing that you saw. I just click on the generate. Feel free to test that. We will share the link of this demo at the end of the presentation as well, so you can play with it as well. But like here we are just on the foundation layer, which is the layer that is right at the bottom, and we are just requesting information. In this case, we are requesting the product description to an LLM, but like without, or just using the data that is available in the LLM when the LLM was trained. So Alessia, how can we improve this by using, for instance, our data? Let's say that we want to create recipes from our recipe book. How can we do that?
I'm always blown away by the poems of that app, seriously, because every time it's a new one, I was reading it. That's amazing. What will we do without LLMs? Okay, LLMs are great, but they have their limitations. Like we all have our limits. So let's have a look at this example, and I think it shows really well what the limitations of LLMs are. Okay, so in this particular example, a large language model is responding really well to questions related to teams or players or sports in the past. But it's struggling now that I'm asking about a words record that happened in 2023 because the LLM was trained in 2021. And it would struggle to discuss the last night's game or the injury of an athlete. So every time we're asking questions that are very recent, because it takes so long and it takes a lot of computing to retrain a large language model, it's not doable to keep the model current. So that's precisely that's why we need a second layer. That's why we need to add a data layer. It's a new layer that allows us to improve the quality of generative AI by allowing large language models to tap into additional data resources without retraining. And that's precisely what retrieval augmented generation, commonly referred to as RAG, comes into play. Imagine all the information, the vast quantity of dynamic data belonging to an organization, structured databases or unstructured PDF files or other documents like blog posts or news feeds or even chat transcripts from customer service sessions. So in RAG, all this vast amount of dynamic data is converted into a common format, and it's stored in a knowledge library. The data in the knowledge library can be processed into numerical representations, calling a special type of algorithm, an embedded language model, and store in a vector database that can be queried, that can be used to generate answers that take into account the context of the question and, of course, the relevant information. And this is precisely actually how Google Search and YouTube play. And that's why they're actually really, really, really good at search and recommend relevant content that could be suitable, that are really, really best fit for each one of us. So Xavi before showed us that really interesting application that was calling directly a large language model. So here we see how the query, the user query, what are blended corn and flour tortillas, it goes through this data layer before reaching the large language model. So what happens behind the scenes when the user input comes in, this query gets converted into a vector, and it's used to create the vector database, which retrieves the information specific to the question's context. So now we have what we call an augmented prompt. It's the initial prompt, so it's what the user is asking, but it also has all the relevant documents that have been found, the data that's been found, contextual, right? That augmented prompt, in this specific case, the nutritional facts or the recipes and the product data sheet, all these together combined, this augmented prompt, it's sent to a large language model that now, just like before, generates a text response. But this text response, our corn and flour blended tortillas, a perfect combination of two, blah, 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 blah. It's different from what an LLM would return. Why? Because it's grounded to the knowledge base that we've provided. And it's time for a second demo, because we believe that demos really convey messages a lot better than us. Okay, so let me switch that quickly. Okay, so what's for dinner is again a web app deployed, hosted in Firebase, which is powered by Vertex AI and generative AI in Google Cloud. So I'm going to play literally I'm going to play with the app in a little bit. But before, let me tell you a bit about how it works. So I'm going to enter a type of a main dish that I would like to eat, because it's 6:20 p.m. here. So it's almost time for dinner. And what's going to happen behind the scenes, a Vertex AI search, which has all the recipes indexed. So Vertex AI search return dishes based on thousands of recipes that are relevant to the to the dish that I have requested, and then my input and the recipes will be sent to an LLM in Vertex AI and Google Cloud, and will return some results. Okay, so without me further talking, I'm just about to ask the app, how can what's the recipe for a dish which is very, very traditional of my region in Italy, which is timballo. Okay, let's see what it comes back with.
Timballo is a great choice. How about trying a timballo de pasta, timballo de riso, or timballo de patate?
So if you see me smiling, it's because I can do this over and over and over and over again. And I will never stop smiling, because I really think that the experience here is fantastic. Now, imagine that you're actually really using this, okay? You're in the kitchen, you've got your hands busy, and you can just, you can just hear rather than reading. And that's really how, regardless of how complex an architecture is, because here we're actually making things easy, but we're talking about a really, really, really complex architecture. The user experience can really make the journey extremely, the experience for us as user extremely, extremely seamless. Okay, so what you heard before is the text converted into speech using the Google Cloud speech to text, text to speech, pardon me, APIs. What I'm going to do as a second stage, I'm going to select these, let's say that I want to make a timballo di pasta, and now I want to generate some side dishes. So this process could go on and on and on and on, because I'm actually continuously sending new prompts, new custom prompts to LLMs, and LLM every time returns new side dishes. And in particular, these ones that pair well with the main dish that I want to make.
Timballo di pasta is a delicious dish. How about pairing it with a side of grilled vegetables, a fresh salad, or garlic bread?
Okay, now if you probably were, obviously you didn't join this morning session, but watch the recording and you will see that actually this morning we got something different. We got a Caesar salad, and I think we got the roasted vegetables. So this is actually, this shows that this is not a mock-up. We are literally getting something different all the time. So new side dishes that really pair well. So with the type of main dish, I'm going to choose garlic bread. Is not that we normally, it's something that we normally don't have in Italy. So how about a fresh salad instead? And bang.
Great, let's get started. The first step is to preheat the oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. This should take about 5 minutes.
And then lots of other things, but you got it, guys. So why did we build this app? Like, well, what's the purpose of this app, and what do we want to explain this app? Well, we could build a huge custom backend, right? Backend API that would have taken into account all the recipes. And can you imagine all the combinations that you have to make, like all the side dishes? It just would have been insane. On the other end, like what we're doing here, we are deferring, we are delegating the data layer to retrieve relevant recipes based on our user inputs, and then we're asking LLM to put all the pieces together in a human readable and in a friendly format. Tavi,
Yeah.
I've got a question for you. How would you make this conversational?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and that was a great demo. Basically, what we have seen so far was all the previous layers, the LLM layer, the data layer, and those are fine. But what happened, as Alessia asked, like what happened when we wanna create like really like complex conversational experience? Okay. So that is when we have to introduce our last layer that we wanna show you today, which is the AI orchestration layer. Okay, when we wanna create basically assistants or agents that are, for instance, like I don't know, like let's say like a book assistant or this kind of thing. So yeah, this is super important to work, you know, like or to put everything together. So the first the thing that we want to say here is like when we want to use LLMs, or when we want to use virtual agents, or when we want to create assistants or agents. In fact, this is not a LLM versus virtual agents, because you know the conclusion is that they really complement each other. LLMs, of course, are typically generalist, trained on a large corpus of text, as we said, and users can prompt or chat with LLMs in a divergent way across a vast range of topics. But like on the other hand, virtual agents, like the ones that you can design and build in Vertex AI Conversation and Dialogflow 6, can guide users to solve certain problems and steer them towards the goal. So why not use all of them together? So this is what we are gonna show you in when at the time that we are explaining this third layer. If we see or we take a look to the solution overview here, what we have is basically, as Alessia explained, we have our data stores that is on our Vertex AI and conversations, where we are gonna upload all our documents, where we are gonna create basically all our knowledge bases that we are gonna use to retrieve information. And then at the bottom, you can see here the generative models. That is the foundation layer with the LLMs, with, like Gemini Pro, Text Bison, Code Bison, Chat Bison, all the LLMs are available on Vertex AI. And then right in the middle, what we have is basically Dialogflow CX, where we're gonna create these assistants, these virtual agents. Dialogflow CX, for the ones that are not familiar with it, is basically a kind of a no-code tool that you can use to create conversations by creating creating flows and by transition from one state to another. It's basically a state manager. So you are gonna create your conversation as basically a flow. So you're gonna be transition from one flow to another, or from one state to another. And Dialogflow 6 has several built-in integrations, and not only that, you can create your own integration. So for instance, let's say that there's a channel that you are using in your business that is not fully supported on Dialogflow 6 in terms that like there's not a built-in integration. You can build your own like in less than a couple of hours. So what are the generative AI features that are available on Dialogflow 6? So the first, there are three. The first one that we want to show you is the one that basically Alessia explained, which is the data store agents to answer in some questions, like basically using the RAG technique to generate responses grounded to the content of your knowledge base. Okay, this is something that we will showcase in the next demo, and so stay tuned because this is pretty cool. Then the generative fallback for error handling. In this case, is basically using LLMs with a custom prompt to handle unexpected user inputs. Instead of saying to the users, I don't understand you, or can you please repeat, when the user sends something that it is not or for the scope of the agent, you can use a prompt to help the user to go back to the happy path. And then the last thing is the generators, which are basically in Dialogflow CX, you will see a possibility to call an LLM, super easy to configure, and it is flexible. That means that you can have or define inputs to that LLM, and those inputs can be set dynamically in the flow of the conversation, and it will request or send that information to the LLM, and it is super easy to set up. In terms of like the spectrum of the conversational experience, as you can see here, you in this spectrum, you see on the left the most deterministic one. Here you can find, of course, Dialogflow CX, which is a flow-based agent with NLU engine, with intent matching, with parameter extraction. And then on the right, what you have is basically the more generative solution, where you can find, of course, the Gemini API, where you can, call and make requests to that API to do some text and chat generation or image generation just with an API or using the playbooks, which is basically Dialogflow 6 agents that you are going to create using natural language instead of flow-based. Here, what you will use is natural language. So yeah, it's worth to taking a look to Dialogflow 6 playbooks. That's pretty new. I think that was released last month, or at least in GA last month. And then right in the beginning, what we have is basically data store agents, generative fallback, and generator, which are the three GenAI pieces that we just explained that is available on Dialogflow CX console. So with this being said, let's move on to the demo that Alessia is going to show us all the GenAI capabilities that you can find on Dialogflow CX and also on Vertex AI search and conversation.
If not all of them, but at least some of them. Thank you, Savi. Okay, so the next application that we are going to build is a chat app about Google Store devices and products. I really thought about something different, like, again, recipes. So a chat app to know how to make a paella, but I just thought it was going to be too much. Okay, but so seriously, spoiler, I thought about making the whole session about food, but I really thought it was going to be too much. Okay. Jokes apart, what you guys are seeing right now, and with you, I'm going to switch tab as well. Okay, so what you guys are seeing right now is the search and conversation page, which is part of Vertex AI search and conversation. A different UI, which I would say is nicely blended and integrated with Dialogflow CX, the console that you guys might be or might not be familiar with. Okay. So you can see right now a bunch of applications, a bunch of chat applications. Actually, not necessarily all chat apps. In fact, you see well, actually, these are all chat apps. So you see up here the app type. But I could create different applications. I could create a recommendation app, or I could also create a search app. Okay, so what I'm going to build is a chat application that will allow us to ask questions that are specific to Google products, devices. And then we are going to do something a little bit different, which will help us to highlight the beauty of putting together like we're putting in tandem a data store with generative fallback to see really how we can, in a way, cover at least 90% of key use cases, or like informational key use cases, and then how we can handle some detours, some common detours and edge cases with generative fallback, as Xavi explained before. Okay, so I'm going to create on new app. And as I mentioned before, and excuse me if there is a little bit of delay, so that's why I'm trying to speak slowly, because there might be a little bit of delay between what I'm seeing and actually what you guys are seeing. So I'm going to select now a chat app that will answer complex questions. When we say out of the box, what are we trying to say here? I'm trying to say that I'm going to provide, as a developer, I can provide a type of a data source, and you will see in a second. I can upload documents, PDF, TXT, CSV files, or I can provide a web. We call a data store. And then on top of that, on top of the data store, Dialogflow will actually deploy an agent, a perfect Dialogflow CX agent. Okay, again, if you're familiar with that, it's already been configured to handle questions from end users about that specific content, but not only that. Okay, so let me select Chopper. Let me provide a company name. We're going to call this the Startup School. Okay, I can select a different time zone and language. This is very, very similar to what you would do if you were creating a Dialogflow CX agent, and you can do that. So whatever I'm doing right now here in Conversation, Vertex AI Conversation, you could do it in Dialogflow CX. You could create it in the way you normally do that. You would create a new agent, and you would be given two options: build your own or auto-generate. Auto-generate is the one that actually will take you literally here. So to avoid a little bit of confusion and ambiguity, I prefer to start from here rather than, you know, having this second hop. Okay, so let me call it. I'm going to call this store agent. I'm fine with the global region, but these days we support multi-region in Europe and in the US. At this point in time, I can select one of the existing use cases, one of the existing data stores, or I can create a new data store. If I create a new data store, I must to select one of these native sources, APIs, we love them, website URL. So what's this? This is really, really interesting. The problem is it's probably not good for demos, and why? Because we want you to prove that you're actually the owner of that website. So you have to verify the domain. So to avoid that, what we normally do for demos in this, and for this demo, for this session, we did exactly the same thing. You can just potentially just crawl our website and then generate HTML files and upload that to Google Cloud Storage, which is precisely what you will do you can do in the Qwiklab that's been built. And I will tell you later on what a Qwiklab, if you're not familiar with that, is. Okay, it's time for me to give the Google Cloud Storage bucket where all the HTML files are. At this stage, you can just leave the unstructured documents unchecked. And again, see, I'm not actually telling which format. I'm not providing that information because during upload, it will actually detect the extension by itself. Or I can provide, in case you want to give metadata, so you want upload structured or unstructured data with metadata, you have to provide a JSON file. And that JSON file, each row, imagine it's got like row number 1, ID X, it's a PDF or not a PDF, that's the title, that's the URL in Google Cloud, and that's URL like the HTML URL. So you can go either ways. I'm going to cancel now, not going to create a data store. Why? Because it will take about 5 minutes or so to index all the files. So instead, I'm going to select a data store that I have already created, this Google Store. And this creates the chat application. In a second, I am redirected to the chat app, and you see that this chat app is now connected to the Google Store data store. But that doesn't mean that I cannot add other data stores. Also, something that I want to highlight is, and you will find all in the documentation, you can make an existing Dialogflow CX agent hybrid. Hybrid means that now you can connect data stores as a concept to an existing Dialogflow CX agent. Very likely, you probably have maybe even Dialogflow Essential FAQ chatbot. obviously we want you to move to Dialogflow CX, but once you've got your FAQ chatbot in Dialogflow CX, it is using your, for example, your structure or your CSV files, then you can extend more capability, and you can extend your knowledge library and use your website or other PDF files or other PowerPoints. Ones we will enable that feature as well. So obviously be mindful of the fact that once you start making the agent hybrid, you will probably have to remove some routes, because the initial routes that you have are related to FAQs, that to frequently asked questions, and now you're going to answer through the data store. So slowly, if your FAQs require deterministic responses, so very deterministic answers, or if they're subject to got PII data, subject to sensitive information, when we recommend that you keep the original approach for some of your Q&As, and then just extend and slowly move to data store, or just use both. So just to give you the concept of an hybrid agent. Okay, all right, so I'm going to click on preview, because these actually, before we do that, I just want to show you the details of this data store. So, and maybe after all the chat that I did, I could have probably created a new data store. But so just a little bit of information about what it looks like. See all these HTML files. The HTML files will look just like the web pages in the Google Cloud, Store. Information about the number of documents, the last document import. Okay, so behind the scenes, a Dialogflow CX agent, which is now able to provide LLM generated responses based, rounded to our data, has been created, okay, by Dialogflow CX. And in fact, to see how I'm taken now precisely to the Dialogflow CX console. As Xavi explained before, this is a no-code, but yes, definitely. So this is extremely friendly, because as you can see, it's very visual. But of course, when it comes down to things like connected to a webhook, like connecting an agent to a backend service, there is a point in time of maybe doing a custom integration with your own mobile app or with your own custom website. You have to write obviously code. But the point is, I can build my flow, as Xavi said before, this is a state machine. So I can configure how to transition from a page to another, and then handle particular things like event and routes for intents. And okay, but now I'm not gonna go too much into the detail of Dialogflow CX, unfortunately, although I'd love to do that. But instead, what I'd like to show you is specifically what it's been done for this data store agent. See that it's connected to the Google Store unstructured documents, and it's been already configured. So the agent says, which is literally what we're going to get as a response. It's been configured with this expression, using the expression language. So when the user asks the agent a question, the agent will search data, will search the answers, and then it will summarize. So it does something more than that in a cohesive, a really nice, in a really nice, friendly way. It will summarize the information. In addition to displaying the content of the response, the most voted answer, it will also provide links to the to where on the website or where in the PDF document that answer was found. That's to improve the user experience and allow the user to know more and dig a little bit more into the content outside of the snippet, outside of the generated response. So once again, okay, literally what happens behind the scenes is, now that I'm going to ask a question, what happens behind the scenes is my user input as a question is as we said, translate it, put as a vector, then query the data store, the vector database. The vector database HTML files will be retrieved. The most grounded answer, if, and obviously some results are returned, because not necessarily if we're asking something which is not strictly related, or we set the grounding confidence too high, and I'm going to get to the grounding confidence in a second. But if everything works fine, then we get a response. But behind that, as part of the data store, the data store agent, a data store handler, we're also able to handle different intents like the agent identification, to handle questions like who are you, or escalate to a human agent. That's because we're actually using pre-built intents. So I'm going to try something different here, and I'm going to ask, who are you? My name is AI Assistant. I was made by the startup school to assist you on the company website. How can I help you today? Okay, this is precisely what I said before. Didn't ask anything specific to the data store, but he asked my guy or girl, whatever this assistant that doesn't probably have has some identity, and the identity that I've given it is exactly actually in the configuration that I provided at the beginning. But you'll see later on that you can make this even more precise. So you can provide more details as part of the data store configuration. And you can tell in like specifically what tasks it's able to do or it cannot do. So that when you are handling a question like this, or when you're hitting a no match, then the response is as cooperative as possible, because that's exactly the point of LLMs, right? So we're adding creativity, we're adding that humanity. So we would expect now an answer which is as cooperative as possible, just like a live agent, a human would reply. Okay, let me copy and paste the next question I want to ask. So this is a little bit longer. The next question is about the Pixel 7 Pro. Does the Pixel 7 Pro support fast charging? Yes, the Pixel 7 Pro supports fast charging. It can charge up to 23 watts when using blah, 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 blah. This custom payload, this is a JSON, okay? Now, in the simulator is just really like the showing text, okay? Hasn't been configured, this is not made to, and we want it like that. We want it for troubleshooting and things like that. It hasn't been configured to render rich content types. But if I actually had to embed this, let's say I want to embed this now into a web app, I would definitely have certainly a better experience. So we do have, as Xavier said before, we have some let me close this for now. We have some one-click integrations with telephony partners, text-based integrations. This one is Dialogflow Messenger, which allows you to embed a chat dialogue into a website, and then Facebook Messenger and Slack, Line, blah, blah, blah. And we've got the awesome developer community that literally providing more webhooks and more integrations as we speak. The Dialogflow Messenger one, we've added the ability for you to test these out directly in the Dialogflow CS console. I think this is pretty cool because you can test it live straight away from the simulator, jump here, and if you enable the unauthenticated API, see actually how this will render into a website. If you had to do this, really, you would literally had to copy and paste this snippet and add it to your HTML console, and the experience to the HTML page, and the experience that you would get is something like this. See this little bubble, like here you can set, you can choose like having as a bubble or as a side panel. Okay, so if I'm going to click here on the little bubble here, This is actually from a previous session, possibly. How long does the battery in the Pixel 7 Pro last? See how the response is actually now also enriched with this link, with this Pixel 7 built to perform. So what we were seeing before as a rich type, as a JSON, now we are now I can see the link in the in my chat dialog. Okay, so I'm going to click done, and the next, as a second part of my demo, I want to give you a little bit of information about how you can within the generative AI data store action. The features that we give you to improve the quality of your agent responses. One which I've touched upon already is the grounding. Enable grounding. You see these 5 lowest scores allowed: very low, low, medium, high, and very high. What's this? So each response generated comes with a score, okay? Which is, it literally is it means it's like the likelihood, how likely the response is to be grounded. Now you can set your lowest score, and whatever comes with a confidence score, which is below that, so which is even lower than that, it's obviously not shown to the user, will not be shown to the user. The data store prompt, remember before when I asked her, who are you? So I can write more details here. I can, for example, see how this is going to change on the company website. I can say that you can assist humans with products and devices to improve the quality of answers, and like as it's written here, make them feel a little bit more brand. So it's like given an identity. Okay. And then this is new. This is something that we recently added, the ability to select the generative model. And these days, we've got Gemini Pro, in addition to Text Bison, available in all the languages that we support. So I'm going to select Gemini Pro. And you can also provide your own summarization prompt. So remember the augmented prompt that I mentioned before. So you can now provide your own prompt, and you can use, as you write your own prompt, you can use things like your original query or the rewritten query or the conversation. If you know how to do good prompt engineering, this is definitely this brings a lot of value. Okay, so I'm happy with the default summarization prompt. I'm going to save my settings, and then switch back to test agent again. And because we changed Gemini, I just want to see how my answer now changes, because I would expect that from Text Bison to Gemini something changes. Okay. So the answer that I expect, here we go, is a little bit is definitely different. It's telling me now, however, actual results may be slower and afters are sorted separately. So see how it actually it's returning something different from what we got before. I tested it with other questions like how long does the battery last, and you can tell actually there is a significant improvement. What happens if I now ask something which is totally unrelated or not strictly related? I'm going to ask this one. I love hiking in winter when it's snowy. Okay, where am I? Okay, here we go. Does the battery drain faster? Now, this question is not strictly related. But it's still actually it's close to what I would expect. Yes, battery life depends on many factors, and usage of certain features will decrease battery life. Actually, battery life might be lower. Now, as if I'm talking to a buddy, I'm going to diverge completely, and I'm going to ask something which is totally unrelated. Can you suggest hikes in the apps. Okay, this is certainly cannot be found in the Google Store website. Okay, I'm sorry, I can only assist you with products and services. How can I help you today? And this is where generative fallback comes into play. So let me hide this for a second, and let's go back to agent. Actually, before we go back to agent settings, let me go back to build for a second. In the start page, you guys, if you're familiar with with Dialogflow, we see there are some built event templates. One is a sysnomad default. Back in the old days, without LLMs, the answer that I would have got here would have been something like, "Didn't get there. Can you say it again? Sorry, could you please rephrase?" Not really cooperative. But with LLMs now, if I enable this checkbox, enable generative fallback, and I do something a little bit, and I do something more than just enable a checkbox, I'm able not just to answer a question if a question can be answered, but I'm also able to handle unexpected inputs, like I'm doing form filling, I'm expecting a value of a certain entity, I'm providing something completely different. If I provided good intent descriptions and flaw descriptions, I can actually get a good response that can help reset the expectations and steer the conversation back to the successful path. Or even at the tour, I don't know, like I'm in a conversation and the user says, "Hang on, the phone is ringing." Totally possible. This is not easy to programmatically design. It's not easy to programmatically design an agent for the tours like this. It's definitely there at 80% that sometimes we ignore because it doesn't fall under the key use cases. Fallback, generative fallback, it's literally where we leverage LLMs, I believe, at our best from a conversational AI perspective. Okay, there is one more thing that I have to do in the generative AI settings, generative fallback. We provide a default template. I need to configure a new template. So I'm going to click on example, edit, and I will provide just something which is a little bit different with this. I've got mine already, and notice how the new one is very similar to the existing one, except for the first row. So now I'm saying you're a friendly AI assistant, answer questions to the best of your knowledge. For this specific example, the last user utterance is the only thing that we actually it's really important for the LLM, but you can also send along the conversation. And believe me, sending along the conversation, which has got the whole context, it's really, 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 really important to provide a good answer. Okay, so custom fallback. Okay, and then I'm going to save it as a new template. And then I'm going to save this again. And okay, switch back to my lovely view. And I'm going to I'm going to play this replay test, which will allow for fast testing. This is amazing. It just replayed the whole thing. Okay, so all the way down, there we go. So now it's become an expert, the Google Store agent, it's become an expert about best hikes in the Alps. The Tour de Mont Blanc, this is a classic 10-day hike, the how route, blah, 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 etc., etc. Having said that, if now I'm a little bit crazy as a person and I want to go back and switch and I want to ask again questions related to the Google Store. Can you tell me about the old net subscriptions? We're back to responses and see how this has been removed, and then the new one it's been added in the queue, and the answer now coming from the Google Store Nesta where $6, blah blah blah. Okay, so I'm just going to wrap up, and I'm also conscious of time. What did I show you? How you can literally in a couple of in a few, like in a wizard, in a few steps, you can build an agent that allows your users to talk about your content that you already have. And we also shown how we can handle the tour's unexpected scenarios, increase error and increases intense coverage, and also handle errors in a much better way, leveraging LLMs. And Tavi, if you are still awake, over to you again.
Yeah, thank you, Alessia, for such a wonderful demo. Yeah, we have shown basically, all the things that we were specifically saying in our like presentation, with all the layers and how everything is working together, which is wonderful. So yeah, just like to start like with a quick of summary, let's start talking about best practices when working with generative AI. When you're creating agents, and we are creating like these complex conversations, and when you're introducing generative AI, there are like new challenges. So for that, our recommendation is basically, whenever you are building your agent, or whenever you are evolving, or like changing your agent, your assistant, always test them. Like, create on Dialogflow CX, you can create tests, and you can to a specific environment, you can create a batch of testing, and that can be automatically executed. So please create them and execute at any time. Make sure that everything is working fine. And also, like when you are introducing GenAI capabilities, as you saw in the Alessia's demo, an easy thing, which is just changing the LLM, that can like change all the outputs of the LLM. So like, test everything. Or for instance, when you are changing the summarization prompt, or when you are changing the generative fallback prompt, or when you are changing any generator, make sure that you are test that. Make sure that also, when you are using your data store agents, the information that you have uploaded to your data stores, to your knowledge bases, make sense, and are suitable for the assistant that you are that you are building. Okay, so yeah, the things that you have here: correctness, testing, accuracy, and quality. This is super important to make sure that your assistant is working as expected at any time. So yeah, Alessia, if you wanna give us the key takeaways of our presentation.
Yes, but before that, I want to say that Savi, who's amazing, he built a CLI for testing Dialogflow CX before LLMs. And he's also now added more things that are related to testing deterministic responses. So I'm pretty sure you can get there if you go to his profile, or I'm sure we can find ways to share that with our folks. Okay, so before we opened the floor to Q&As, just wanted to take a deep breath a little bit and summarize the key takeaways that we want you that we hoping that you got from this session. Okay, so number one, we've talked about the layers of generative AI: foundation, data, orchestration. Foundation involves LLMs, reinforcement learning with human feedback, prompt engineering, the data layer that sits on top of LLMs is what makes retrieval, what gives us retrieval augmented generation, which allows it to give more contextual, accurate responses to your customers, to your users. And then last but not least, the orchestration layer, which involves all customer interactions, not necessarily a UI, a conversational interface, a semantic search application, natural language search. Okay, so the orchestration layer, which is how our users interact with the data layer and with the LLMs ultimately, for a bunch of reasons: information retrieval, question answering, troubleshooting, and of course, transact. Okay, this is a good segue to point number 2. Revisit the principles of conversation design if you want to preserve the human factor. If you are, and that's totally fine, if you're building something for fun, to have a conversation with an LLM like you would do with a buddy, like remember the point that we saw before? Perfect. Even if you're building something to let you use and learn. But if you are, if your agent has got transactional use cases, always remember that LLMs tend to diverge a little bit. So always keep in mind the principles of conversation design. Always remember that LLMs let you inject creative content and add humanity to your apps, but they cannot serve as a drop-in replacement for a traditional design chatbot. For chatbots, you would design in a traditional way. Okay. Wrap up, learning resources. You are going to get all these links. Just quickly, let me go through them. The generative AI use cases, you probably have seen them ready from other sessions. The conversation design web app, do yourself a favor, visit this website. We put it together on top of the Google Assistant conversation design process that Fox wrote a while ago. That's several years ago, and they're still super relevant. The demo apps that we saw in this presentation, the content generation, thank you, Xavi, the natural language search, the one that I demoed, and then the Google Store agent. Now, the Google Store agent, which is actually the nice UI of the version that we demo, that I demoed as part of the live demo thing that I did, is this one. This is not a cloud skill boost. This is not a core lab. This is not a notebook. This is yet another lab that we created. Core labs are amazing, but you need your own project. You need to have set up your project, your org, enable the API, but visit these code labs. The first one is the generative chat app. The second one is about generative fallback. So it's a very deep dive into generative fallback. And last but not least, the informed decision making. This one shows how generators and data stores work in tandem with in a very interesting way, the blood donation chat. And that's all from us from now. For now.
Well, that's all, but that's a lot at the same
That's
time.
a lot. Oh, I bet it is.
And what's for dinner? What's for dinner? I love it. I'll give you a couple of minutes just to take a stretch, take a glass of water, and whatever you want to do before we jump into QA. So with that, you know the drill. If you are not here for not for the first time, this is the moment where I recommend the Google for Startups Cloud program. Again, if you haven't started yet, you can start building GenAI solutions with us, with credits and more than credits available in this program for startups. We received a couple of questions over last week. It's an equity-free program. We are giving you credits. We are giving you access to mentors, to experts, to some exclusive trainings. There's a workspace for new users. There are credits and maps, obviously access to Cloud Skills Boost for other people in your company. So whether you're bootstrap, whether you're funded, Web3, AI, first startup, there is something always for you, different offers, different tiers. The way the application works, you just leave a couple of details, we verify within 3-5 business days, and you should be good to go. So that's Google for Startups Cloud program. One more thing before I go to the next slide is exactly what Alessia said. Today, we are introducing yet another way of practicing, yet another way of homework. I know that it might be a bit hard to understand or distracting that we are having labs and code labs and notebooks. Well, we're trying our best to have every single homework as a lab in Skills Boost. Unfortunately, it's not that easy. It takes time to translate them into lab. So today, what our fantastic instructors were recommending are code labs Similar to notebooks, they need your own cloud console. But by now, if you practice with the notebooks, you should have set up your first cloud account, your first cloud project. Instead of using Colab or Workbench, you're just using the APIs as you would normally build something for your company. So that's the code labs. These are the code labs from today. Now, I want to also ask you for a couple of minutes to share your thoughts. As usual, we are sharing the feedback form. This is the right moment to grab your phone to scan this QR code, or if you're more traditional, you can retype the link over here, Google/GenAI-feedback W4, because it's week 4 already. We would love to hear your feedback about Tuesday and about today's session. We will also resurface this feedback for you on our typical Monday recap emails. So I would really appreciate, especially that we're coming closely to the end. We would love to know how this program could be even better for you. Okay, so with that, I would love to invite again Javi and Alessia. Oh, I see them. Yes, they are here. Okay, there was a bit of a stretching. I guess we have time. And so let me see where I could start. I have my fantastic elves, as I call them, that are giving me the most popular questions, and they were trying to answer them all. A lot of them, as always. Okay, so I'll maybe start with this one. I'm not sure who's gonna answer. So like, hands up who is ready. So, okay. The user is asking, what approach should I use if my data changes over time? Do I need to reindex whole knowledge base every time my data is updated or deleted? How about that?
I can take that one, but should we start from the ones that the folks do not asked? I just want to be, 100% sure that we answer those ones, that we address those ones first. And I think the ones that we got in the end, like I've got this one from Vinod. How do you distinguish? Should we start with those ones?
Okay. Yes, I'm seeing from Vinod. Okay, so Vinod is asking, how do you distinguish between a use case that can be designed with deterministic algorithm for specific ways to distinguish and identify the right design approach to apply? I generally agree. Always think first before actually trying to build something about the right design, because once you make a wrong decision, it's sometimes a lot of costs associated with this. So
answer it.
Versus generative LLM based, what should we use, the old school or the new hype school?
Yeah. Okay. Tim want to answer the question seriously, see, we can talk about new things, but ultimately it's common sense. Thank you so much, Vinod, for Vinod. Apologies if I'm not pronouncing your name properly. This is a great question, buddy. Such a good question. I wrote a while ago an article on Medium, which is called "Generative AI is New and Exciting, but Conversation Design is Forever. Conversation design principles are forever, timeless," or something like that. Where am I going with this? You're asking a really good question. And that's when I talk to my customers, I would love them to ask me the same question. The answer is, it all goes back to convergent thinking and divergent thinking. There are use cases that want you to convert to the resolution of a problem. Let's say that you want to report a damage. Something is broken in your house or your car broke down. Do you want to chat or do you actually want some help? So a use case that requires determinism is a use case that you are building to help your users solve a problem. I'm not saying that LLMs cannot solve problems. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that because of their nature, because of how they are built, the limitations that we said before, the fact they're not completely like the grounding, the lack of grounding. And because I can potentially even, like, if you go to their Medium article, you can see there is an example of a conversation where the user is trying to report a damage, like a graffiti damage on his property, and the LLM just goes off track. All right, like, oh yeah, there are several ways to upload a photo. You can upload it, but I don't know how to do that. Can you please help me transact on this? So long story short, I think the answer to this question is how do you distinguish? I think I've answered that question. So the transactional ones would probably require more traditional design. But then, as we saw with generative fallback, you can sprinkle a little bit of, creativity to give that persona to your agent, or to, but you have to strike a balance between, a traditional traditional agent design, and creating content, looking for a specific way to distinguish and identify the right decision. But I'm really hoping that the article is gonna help. But feel free to reach out. Seriously, I'm happy to talk about this for at least another hour.
I was working a lot with the TensorFlow actually back in the days, and I was also seeing a lot of use cases for Google Assistant and these transactions over there. Natural language was a fantastic feature back, five years ago. I saw, for instance, a lot of these in finance sector, a lot of these chat apps over there using TensorFlow, understanding the intent of the user, which is fantastic. And the intent is both through phone, like multimodal actually, whether it's a chat, whether it's a phone, it tries to put you. Unfortunately, the feeling usually is like you're trying to describe your problem when it's not perfectly implemented. It's like, oh, I'll get you to the real person. I don't get what you know. I hope LLMs can help, but that's exactly in finance there are transactions, like people are calling the bank because they want something specific and they want it fast, right? So I would say this is a bit of a deterministic algorithm, but
definitely.
There are cases in the finance world, for instance, where a lot of things are changing, all the policies or the promotions, and like to be able to stay on top of them, just to feed the algorithm that, oh, we just introduced a new promo, we need new discount, new get 2 accounts, get 1 free, whatever, with the RAG, for instance, right? When you can feed automatically the LLM and be always updated, that's, I would say if when you're designing the approach here, it's like, are your data is changing? Is your data set always changing? And you have totally new policies, new features? Well, then maybe you should try to give your chat some intelligence, artificial intelligence to learn. But in general, when it comes to the design, and we are talking about GenAI a lot here for a couple of weeks. There is a hype, obviously. But I remember, personally, everybody wanted a mobile app. There was a hype for a mobile app. And when I'm raising startups, they're coming, it's like, so I have an idea for an app that does this. I'm like, are you really, think about your idea first, and app is just a way, right? The same goes with that artificial intelligence.
Exactly.
Think about the real thing, what you want to try to achieve, and see if AI can help you or not. Don't just create because it's an AI based. So that would be
And to what you said, just one bit, absolutely. Finance, retail, these are very, or health. Consider that obviously LLMs are models, so they can be biased, right? They're subject to biasing, and there are also lots of use cases that require sensitive data. And LLMs, while it might be able to extract entities, there are lots of scenarios where you actually have to redact that data. So just keep into account of whatever Dialogflow CX, all the features that are available out there, and then use the common sense, as Timon said. Just use that with for the right needs.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll maybe move to another question, which is like, it seems like, okay, there's someone that thinks that the generative LM-based approach is the right approach, and exactly this person is using something else. So we did a good job on promoting, chat apps using GenAI at Google. The question is, how easy is it to move a dialogue flow from another agent, another assistant, to, let's say, Google environment? Is it as easy as cut and paste, or will it need to be recreated from scratch, especially if skills included?
I will take that one. Yeah, basically, I mean, there's not an like a direct path like a cut and paste. You will need to redesign basically your assistant. For instance, if you are moving from Dialogflow ES to Dialogflow CX, the approaches are like mainly different. Dialogflow ES, sorry, is more like, of course, like you have your frequent ask question sections, and you have your NLU and all the stuff. But there's like all the state manager and all the stuff. That is something that you have to build on your own mainly. Uh, Basically in the code side, and when you move to Dialogflow 6, that is something that is built in, so you have to remove a bunch of pieces of code that you have, and put that or move that into design basically, because that is the most important thing of Dialogflow 6, which is spending less time in writing code and spending more time on conversation design, which is the most important thing, the user experience at the very end. So yeah, there's just to as a summary, there's not a copy and paste. Probably you can use APIs to import, for instance, your NLU. You can do that, and also you have a knowledge base somewhere else. You can also retrieve information from your knowledge base and import that in Vertex AI search and conversations using the API that are available as well. But yeah, you will need to probably like redesign your agent.
And to the person who added this question, thank you. Something that will come really, really, really handy when there will be released GA, they're in public preview at the moment, will be notebooks. It's 7:30 at night. Playbooks. Playbooks will really streamline a little bit, cut down the time of development. So if you are moving from another platform, and of course you're already aware of the use cases, and you've done the great job of going through the conversation design process, you already know what the use cases are, what your persona is, what your users are, and you've got simple dialogues. So you've done the great job of doing the design. Then playbooks using tools and giving natural language instructions, using tools like a data store or an open API. The goal is to help you spend more time on what requires really human, let me say, in a way, intelligence, and let LLMs generate the code based on the instructions that you provide.
Not easy, worth it, I would say. At least that's our recommendation. I think we have time for one more. So regarding the demo you were showing today, the very, I'm also hungry right now after seeing this. So Celso Rodriguez says, good job with the what's for dinner. He's also asking, is the source code available? But when we are talking, so the source code would be the first question for this, and the second, another question was, what happens if someone asks for a dish that doesn't have any reference in the data layer. So would there, the LLM respond to a query of the general knowledge? Would it start to hallucinate? Would it just say, no, I don't know, I just know these dishes? So the source code, and what happens if I ask for, I don't know, some foolish pierogies, let's say. That way,
Okay, super briefly, my 2 cents, and then Xavi, if you want to add. The source code for this app is probably the only app for which we haven't provided the source code. Otherwise, all the source code for the other apps are available on our GitHub contact center AI samples. This app, we haven't yet uploaded a source code because it was actually built for a customer. So now we have to de-anonymize a few things. We cannot share the actual recipes because they belong to this customer. But once we've done the diligent work of making it a little bit more generalist than it is, then we will definitely upload the source code. Thank you so much for sharing interest. The second question, it really depends on how you have written your prompt. So that's when prompt engineering, good prompt engineering really comes into play. You have to design your prompt first to let the LLM know that it didn't find any results, right? Because ultimately there was no results is coming from the data, from your knowledge base, from your vector database. And then remember that all goes through LLM. If LLM has got a good prompt, then it will know how to elaborate in regards to the fact that I did not found anything. Dialogflow does that behind the scenes for you with the data store prompt details, when it said, I am an AI assistant of the startup school. I'm only able to provide information about products or devices. Can you please rephrase? In the what's for dinner, because that's all custom, you'll have to write the right prompt and handle on the orchestration layer whatever is returned by LLM.
Sure, gotcha. Thank you very, very much, both of you. That was a very special session today with a fantastic time for dinner, for sure, time for sleep for someone. Have a good night over there. I know it's after midnight in your place. You were, Alessia, you were mentioning prompt engineering, right? Prompt engineering. Our fantastic attendants should know all the good tips on prompt engineering. That was on our week 2. But if you haven't watched the prompt engineering session, you can do this obviously on demand. But with that, thank you so much for your time on both sessions today in the morning, and right now the one that is happening for morning Americas and evening the rest of the world. Thank you very much. And with that, all that is left for me is to invite you to the week 5. The week 5 next startup school. We are seeing each other one day before Valentine's, so we're gonna have startup school, Valentine's, and startup school Tuesday, February 13th. We're gonna deploy and host some apps in the cloud. We're gonna have Jason Davenport, a fantastic person from Google Cloud, to show us how we do it. I hope you all already observed that we're going from intro to very advanced. We were talking about an overview, prompt engineering. Today we were building some chat apps. We had RAG and embeddings on the course. Now we're going to deploy and host them in the cloud. So as you can see, this is the full path, the full journey. Remember about that feedback form. I would love to hear a feedback from you. We see each other next week. Just in case, startupschool@google.com is your contact email to both me and Luisa, and the other folks behind the project. Thank you very much for joining today, and see you next week. Bye.